What is up, guys? Dzeeff here, and in today's video we're going to talk about the deck that I played at the YCS Chicago that happened this past weekend. You might have seen yesterday's video, and I will try not to have too much overlap in between these two videos, but basically I lost on the bubble. I mentioned that in the last video, and that was sort of the focus of the last video, but I did get a couple questions from people saying, well, what is losing on the bubble? What does that mean? Basically, in regards to a YCS, which is a pretty big Yu-Gi-Oh event, it means that you lost in the final round of the second day of Swiss, and that's a pretty big deal because it means that if I won that round, I would have topped the event. So I was one match away, one game away from winning the match to actually make me top that event, which is pretty exciting. So I didn't top the event. It's pretty disappointing, and I really wanted to, and I put a lot of time and effort in this deck, but I felt like overall this is one of the best Altergeist decks for this event. You know, Altergeist didn't end up topping the event, but I was so close that I can't help but feel like my build sort of broke the mold that a lot of people sort of fell into, and I had some pretty interesting techs in the main deck, and I should mention, I mentioned this in the last video as well, but I won only one die roll out of 11 rounds, which means that I had to go second 10 rounds out of 11, and when you think of decks like Altergeist, they really want to go first, so I think that, I mean, just that alone really shows that I think that I know what I'm doing with this build in particular, because I made some pretty crazy techs, but we'll take a look at them in today's video. So first off, we have 3 copies of a good old Marionetter, 3 copies of Faker. I won't spend too much time talking about these guys because we've, I think this is like the 10th Altergeist profile. We've been playing it for like a year or whatever, but 3 Molaseek, 2 of the one that I still can't pronounce, and 1 Conqueree. Those are just all the staple Altergeist cards. You should be playing all of those. There was a point in time in the TCG where no one really played this card, but I think most people, including myself, figured out that it's actually just broken, so that card's really good, particularly good against Thunder Dragons. 3 copies of Ash Blossom. You know, I really didn't want to play this card. It's if you notice, like, a lot of the profiles from YCS Chicago just weren't playing hand traps in the main, and I don't know, like, I didn't really know how many people would be playing Geists, and this card is good against Extravagance, but like, I think I could have, like, cut one for, like, Impermanence or something. I don't know. I think I should have played, like, Impermanence in the main somewhere. I just didn't think... I sort of underestimated how good the Guard Dragons would be, so I didn't play Impermanence in the main. But this card was, like, okay. It wasn't, like, stellar. It was just pretty good. The big new card, I suppose, the reason that you should play Geist if you want to, is Pot of Extravagance. So this card is basically Pot of Greed. You know, I spent pretty much all of last video talking about this card, and just for, like, future reference, just in case, like, anyone watches this video like a couple months after it comes out, I think the chances are pretty low, but I'm sure someone will find this video, like, stumble upon it, maybe going to, like, the playlist of all my deck profiles or something. But this is the first week, and this was the first week this card was legal. At the moment, like, the card's super expensive. It's probably overhyped, but in this deck, it's broken. The downside of this card never affected me in any way at all. I never banished all the Hexias. There were multiple times where I banished 2 Hexias, but, like, it just doesn't matter. Like, with Altergeist, if you're drawing 2 cards, you're just winning that game. It's so good, and it's particularly good because when you go second, you can see 8 cards in your, like, opening turn, because you have you draw 1 for going second, so you have 6 cards, then you draw 2 more with this one. Really good. It's only got Ash twice, and one of those I had the Call by the Grave to stop it, which I guess we'll get to that in a second. That's one of the techs I was playing. Overall, though, this card was phenomenal, and definitely worth the price tag if you're playing Altergeist. I don't know about the other decks, though. I guess Guru Control, it's really good in there, too. And then we played 3 Secret Village. Honestly, this card, like, it was, like, average. I don't know. A lot of people think this deck is just like, oh, draw Secret Village, win the game. Skyscrapers have, like, infinite outs to it these days. A lot of them are maining evenly matched. But Typhoon outs it. Prankatops outs it. There's just, like, a lot of things that out this card. It's also, like, the card, the Floodgate, that loses the most to evenly match, because no matter what you keep, like, you don't get to keep its effect. Unlike Order, where if you have, like, an Order in the evenly match, you just keep the Order and they can't deal with it. So this is, like, the worst card against evenly match, because it just, I mean, it just goes away, and also, like, they just Typhoon it in your end phase, like, you just lose, basically. I almost wish I played Metaverse just to, like, dodge Typhoon, but there will be some games, and I had a few games where you just, like, activate this first turn, or activate the second turn, and your opponent just can't deal with it, and you have to go to the next game. That happens. It's just not as often as I think people think it actually happens. So yeah, one of my techs that I played, and one of the techs that I played at the ARG Invitational this past summer where I topped, was Call by the Grave in the main. This card's really powerful. It's maybe maybe I was just a coward because I didn't want my indulgence to get ashed, but I mean, this card's really useful in a lot of situations. It can't be red rebooted, which is really big, or if they red reboot you and you have this set, you can sort of like catch them with that. It's really good at dealing with Ray. Ray's really hard to deal with when you go second. When you go first, like, it's easy to deal with because you just bounce the extra deck monster and then you protocol the Ray and Grave. But if they have like other stuff or you go second, it's like really tough to deal with. So Call by the Grave on Ray's good. Call by the Grave on Thunder Dragons is cool. This is pretty good against Luna Lights as well. That deck was like the big breakaway deck of this event. I actually did play against the Luna Light deck. I didn't play against the winner, but I did play against the Luna Light deck. That's sort of like wombo comboed, and this card's really good because the reason that Luna Lights are so good is because they have all non-once per turn effects, so this just like turns them off for the entire turn. So pretty cool. And like this card, kind of like Secret Village, it wasn't like phenomenal, didn't like overperform, it was just kind of average. I think this is like one of the weaker cards in the deck, but it did its job for most of the time. Alright, and then for the traps, because it's a trap deck, although there's only 17 of them, not more than 20 like sometimes, but we have 3 copies of Spoofing. It's a card that like wins you the game. Obviously really bad against Colossus, but what are you going to do about that? And then 2 copies of Protocol, 1 copy of Manifestation. I just want to mention real quick the 41st card of my deck, if I played 41, which I didn't, the 41st card, and you're going to see this like some other cards that had some tough competition, but I really wanted to play the Altergeist counter, or the Altergeist Trap Monster card, whatever that card's called, but I couldn't find room to fit it in 40, and I really didn't want to play. I hate playing 41 card decks, mainly because like any match that I lose, I like didn't draw like a card I wanted, I just like get mad at myself. I'm just like, well, if I just played 40, I would have maybe drawn it. But I really wanted to play that like Trap Monster because it's just so good at like extending your plays, and unlike Manifestation, you can just like flip it up, and when you don't have like a graveyard set up, and you can activate stuff, and it's pretty cool when for protecting the Secret Village, because if you like set Manifestation with the Marionetter and they kill the Marionetter and you flip Manifestation, they can just like Twin Twisters the Secret Village because you don't have a spellcaster on board. But I don't know, it's like whatever. I can't bring myself to play 40. And then the tech of the weekend, the reason I made day 2, the reason I bubbled, evenly matched. So this card is kind of unorthodox in the main deck. It's actually very unorthodox in the main deck for Altergeists, but it is yeah, it's the reason that I did so well. I mean, I lost all those die rolls, and I would say out of the 10 die rolls I lost, I think I won 6 game ones because of this card. And man, this card is just so good. Like, people just do not play around evenly matching game 1, even though like maybe they play around it because of like Skystakers, but I think the vast majority of my opponents like knew I was playing Altergeist, just because like I'm not like a named player because I'm good, but people, like, if you've seen any of my YouTube videos in the past year, you know that I play Altergeist. I think most people knew that. But yeah, in game 1, people just like put their entire hand on the table and you just like evenly match them. And yeah, sort of like with the Extravagance thing I was talking about, this card can just be in the top 8 cards of your deck and you just like win every time. Simo was playing this in the main deck too, and it worked out really well for him, I think. So overall, I'm like really happy with how evenly match worked. Next up, we have 2 copies of Heavy Stormduster. I really wanted to play 3, but I just couldn't find the space, and I probably should have sided 1. I'll talk about that in a second. I thought my main deck was like overall pretty solid, except for maybe I should have hit it in permanence. But anyway, what's weird about this card in particular, more so than any other card in the entire deck, and I really mean that, this card really looks bad when you're just doing test hands, and because most of my friends like moved away, I don't really have like a super good testing group anymore. A lot of my testing is just theory from me playing at events, then like saying, okay, how can I like change my deck to address the metagame? And this is the card that's so weird, because when you're doing test hands, it's like, man, it just doesn't do anything, because it's hard to see how impactful this card is until like you just pop your opponent's like back row in a match. But so this card is like really weird in test hands, but in practice it's just so powerful. So I'm really glad I played it, because like during test hands I kept thinking that was like the weakest card, but it definitely was really good. I played 3 Rivalry in the main, and this card's phenomenal right now. Like, there's so many different decks out there that are playing like just a variety of types. This is good against every single deck except Altergeists, and I played 3 Altergeists and I beat all of those matchups. I felt like those weren't too hard with the Evelines in the main. I have like a ton of side deck cards for the mirror match, which is in the past I felt like the weakest part of my decks have always been the mirror match, but I think this was the first event where I was like really prepared, and it really paid off to beat all the Altergeists I played, including some really well-known players, a guy on the Jobber team and a guy on one of the European teams, which is really cool. Anyway, this card was really good against like everything, so I just wanted to main 3. Shout out to my friend Ricky. I was playing like 1 Terraforming in the main and the 3rd Rivalry, but I switched him out last minute. Best decision I ever made, so that was really cool. Alright, and then we have, so this part's kind of weird, we have one copy of Solemn Strike, one copy of Solemn Warning, and one copy of Judgment. So a lot of people are used to seeing like a different number of these. It's been pretty common just to play like 5, but I had to fit like the Call by the Graves. The easiest way to think about it is that like I cut the impermanences for Evenlies, and I cut the strikes, the extra strikes for Call by the Graves. They don't exactly have like the same applications, like kind of just some overlap, but in general, the reason I did this was because like these are the two most powerful ones, because Warning can stop Denko, and it's really good against the mirror because you can hit Marionette and you can hit Moleseek, and it doesn't trigger the Moleseek effect. So basically, like, it wasn't that so much that like, oh, like you should just play like one Solemn Strike, because I was playing like 2 Solemn Strikes and like the Judgment for a long time, but then I just realized that like Warning, like all it takes is like getting Denko'd a few times to be like, okay, maybe I should play Warning instead of Strike. I just didn't have the room for all 5. Like if I had room for all 5, like I'd play all 5, but if you only have room for 3, you should just play like the best ones, and Strike isn't better than Warning and Judgment. So like maybe at one point it was, and like the only time it matters is when you have to use the stuff against hand traps, because these don't hit hand traps, but other than that, like these are just better like in every single case. But those worked really well. And then one copy of Order. This is a card that you flip and your opponent like scoops the game even if your hand sucks. There's no really other floodgate like that. Like Secret Village, like they can, a lot of times they like play through it and like they can just like out it. It like just stalls them for 1 turn. Rivalry, like they'll usually just like summon Ray and attack you a couple times, but if you drop this on your opponent, they just like scoop the game every time. It's just so hard to out. And like yeah, you're taking like 1400 damage every single time that your turn rolls around, because you take 700 on your turn, 700 on your opponent's turn. But luckily this deck can put out a lot of damage really fast, so it doesn't matter too much. For the extra deck, so like it's hard to explain. It's not that hard to explain, but basically, so we have 3 Hexia, 2 of this trash card, 2 of this okay-ish card, and 2 of this card. So this deck, I don't think you necessarily have to do this with every deck that plays Extravagance. It's just like this weird situation where every deck that plays Extravagance is a deck that's not using the extra deck anyway, so like, well, you might as well just max out on the cards that you're actually making. There were some people that I played against, one of the mirror matches was playing like 3 Link Kribo and like 3 Prime Banshee. Basically the idea is that when you banish 6 cards, right, so you have 7 cards that you can the idea of the Link monsters in general is, as long as you have like a way to send Moleseek to the graveyard with a Link summon, you're like good. So if you have 7 cards that can do that, and then I guess you can even count 9 if you count these 2, except they take a little bit more setup. You can never banish all the cards to that would require, or that would let you send Moleseek to the grave. So that's kind of how that worked. I never noticed the Extravagance like ever keeping me down. There was like maybe a couple times where I only had 1 Hexia left and I had to make Hexia Prime Banshee. Where just like, if you're, like I said, if you can make, my thing with Altergeists, and it always has been once I figured out like how to stop being dumb with this deck, was if you can make a Hexia using a Moleseek, you will win 95% of the time. Like it is just, if that resolves, you just have so much. You set up like 4 negates and a bounce, and it's just impossible for your opponent to deal with. And then I play like all these like really terrible cards that you like can't make. The Nightmares like never come up. This never comes up. This Outs Inspector Border, technically this never comes up anymore, but yeah, like this is why like it doesn't matter. Like these could have all been like Altergeist cards and it would have been like better, but it's just like the problem is you can't summon non-Altergeist cards the turn that you multi-faker, so those just don't come up very often. And lastly, we have the side deck, which I felt was like one of the strongest parts of my deck. It also, I don't know, it has like the only change I'd take in my deck for like the most part, looking back on things, but it also I felt like was really good because I sided into like most of these things in a lot of matchups. So we have a 3 border, really good against the mirror. It's like an auto winning against the mirror. A lot of times like they have a way to out this, but like they just lose so much tempo and they have to like waste a lot of cards, and then you can like have your normal plays resolve. Pretty good against Thunder Dragons. Like one problem with Thunder Dragons is that like I actually lost the game because he set like a Jackalope, and I should have just like gotten rid of my own border with like a Link summon, but I just like sat on it for too long, and then he just was able to like tribute summon a Thunder monster, and like I just couldn't deal with it anymore, so that kind of sucked. But overall I won a lot of games with this. It's a good card. Kind of degenerate though in the mirror because it's just like so hard to out. And then we have a 3 Lancia. A lot of reasons for this. Like it's just good against like all the decks that are playing Guard Dragons, because they're all playing Guard Dragons with the baby Chaos Dragons, and this just stops that. You can just like activate this on a Thunder Dragon's first turn. A lot of times they just like can't, they can make like plays, especially if they're playing the Dangers, but a lot of times it makes their plays like suboptimal, and they're usually not like the full combos because they can't like Allure of Darkness if they're playing that card. They can't Lone Wolf. They can't use a lot of their banishing effects. Well, I guess they can't use any of their banishing effects, but that's like a a good portion of their effects want to banish cards, and they can't do that when you activate Lancia. And also, this didn't come up too often, but I did side this in like one copy when I went first sometimes, because this does counter evenly match, which is kind of cool. One terraforming, I don't think you necessarily need this, because honestly, like the Skystriker matchup post side decking is just so weird, because they side in like 1,000 outs to your floodgates, and then so it's like, do you like double down and play more floodgates? I don't know, it's just like a really weird situation. I don't know if there's like something else you can play besides this. It's just so weird, because they have so many outs to your floodgates, so a lot of times they just don't stick on the board. And of the floodgates you're playing, Secret Village is the worst one, because of like what I said with the evenly match thing, because if they like well, the thing with like Secret Village is like, not only does the Secret Village have to be like on the field, but also like you have to have a spellcaster, and sometimes they can out the spellcaster, sometimes they can out the Secret Village. Cards like Ravelry just like stick a lot more, but it's whatever, like it was fine, I guess. And then 3 impermanents, I should have found like a way to play 2 of them in the main deck. The reason I didn't play this card was because I felt like it was bad against Strikers game 1, which it is, and I felt like it was bad against Geist game 1, which it is. I sort of underestimated how popular the Thunder Dragon like combo deck would be, especially like in the later rounds, because like I knew that the deck was like around, but it lost so many pieces. I just had no idea people would be playing like Sekka's Light, Danger, Thunder Dragons. And I also like didn't read any Guard Dragon cards before this event, and I got like destroyed by those in 2 different rounds, so I really wish I would have been playing this card just to stop the Guard Dragon summons, but it's whatever. The best card on my side deck, I wish I could play. I've thought about how many of Wiretaps I would play if I could like just play infinite copies. I think the right number would be like 5 or 6. This card just destroys everything. It destroys all the control mirror matches. It destroys evenly match. It gets rid of like red reboot. This thing just destroys everything. This card is so good. I wish I sided this card more than like any other card on my side deck. Amazing. Good going first and second depending on the matchup. And then we have the only bad card on my side deck, the card that I never sided into, Forbidden Apocrypta. The reason this card is bad isn't because it's like bad against Thunder Dragons, it's just not good against the new versions of Thunder Dragons. This card was particularly useful against all of the like pure Thunder Dragon decks, but people just like aren't playing that anymore. If you're playing at like locals and you know that your friends are just playing the pure version of Thunder Dragons, like maybe they're like not like caught up with like the times with like the Danger version, or if you're playing at like a regional, maybe like the pure Thunder Dragon is like more popular, this card's really good. Like it shines so much against those pure Thunder Dragon decks, because they just end on Titan, Colossus, Colossus, and you just kill them. But against the Danger versions, they don't really do that. They have like a Colossus out, and sometimes they have a Titan out, but like a lot of them weren't even playing Titan, and this card is like mainly for like getting rid of the Titan, because Colossus like doesn't matter too much against you. It's the Titan that's like the problem for Altergeists. But a lot of times like the new Thunder Dragon decks, they don't end with that kind of stuff. They end with like Zombie Stein, they end with like the Hot Red Dragon Archfiend, so this card doesn't really help. So this card could be like evenly match, it could be Heavy Storm Duster, it could be Winged Dragon Raw Sphere mode, it could be so many other things. This is just not what it should be until like pure Thunder Dragons come back in the meta game. But yeah, that was my deck list for YCS Chicago. Like I said, I spent a lot of time on this deck list. I tested a lot for this event. I did a lot of different builds, a lot of different crazy techs. I think that I mean, man, I'm hungry for that next like opportunity to top or whatever, but I really think that this evenly match like got in there. This is like why I was able to beat so many people, and it's like a choice that not a lot of people made, so I think that that's one of the reasons that I was able to be so successful at this event and almost get that top. But maybe next time. That's Yu-Gi-Oh! What are you gonna do? I'll see you guys later though. Thank you so much for watching today's video. Goodbye.